When I first received the letter with the documents, I thought it was some kind of mistake. The envelope had my name on it, but there was no return address. Inside were copies of my driver's license, birth certificate, and even a few bank statements. Everything looked like my personal information, but the picture on all the documents wasn't mine. I stared at the picture for a long time. The man in the photo looked about 10 years older than me, but the facial features were strangely similar. I ran my fingers over the imprinted face, trying to figure out who it was. My name, my date of birth, but clearly not me. My first thought was to contact the bank, but the statement showed an account in another state, Texas. I had never lived there. I dialed the bank's number and identified myself by name from the paperwork, but the operator replied that the information could only be accessed by visiting the branch in person. I decided to call my best friend Mike. He was always good at investigations and had gotten me out of trouble more than once. "Where are you now?" he asked after my rambling story. "At home. Let me stop by and take a look together." When Mike arrived, I showed him the papers. He studied them with interest and frowned. "It's really your ID. But it's not your photo. Maybe someone was trying to impersonate you." "But why?" I wondered. "Maybe it's a double. Or someone who decided to steal your identity." I wrapped my arms around my head. If someone used my data, it could be serious. I remembered my bank account and decided to check its balance. To my horror, there were several transactions in Texas in there, even though I've never been there. "Dude, that's really weird," Mike said. "You need to go over there and figure it out." "Do you think I should?" "If someone under your name is living a different life, yeah." The next day I bought a plane ticket and headed to Texas. Mike promised to stay in touch and check the news. I couldn't shake the creepy feeling that I was walking into some kind of convoluted game. When I arrived in the town listed on the bank statement, the first thing I did was head to the local bank branch. The line was slow, and I had plenty of time to review the paperwork one more time. Everything looked perfect: name, date of birth, even my social security number, just like mine. When it was finally my turn, I approached the employee and explained the situation. He politely asked me to wait and then brought in the manager. "Mr. Carter, you say you didn't open this account?" "Yes. I've never been to Texas." "But," he squinted his eyes and sighed. "Last week, you came in here and opened a deposit. We even have the security tape." I felt everything inside me shatter. "Can you show me the tape?" "Sure." The manager took me into the office and turned on the security footage. I froze in horror when I saw a man who looked just like me, but with a short beard, appear on the screen. He acted confident, like he really knew what he was doing. "It's not me," I whispered. "Are you sure?" The manager looked confused. "Absolutely." After a long explanation, I left the bank with a heavy feeling in my heart. This man was my double, but how did he get my data? I went to the local police station, where they listened to me attentively, but did not take me seriously. "Sometimes people forget what they're doing," the officer said indifferently. "I wasn't here. Maybe this is a joke. Or do you have a twin brother?" I shook my head. The whole thing was absurd. I contacted Mike and told him what had happened. "It's kind of crazy," he exhaled. "Are you sure it wasn't you?" "Man, I don't even know what to think." That night I checked into a motel and tried to sleep. But my mind was filled with horrible thoughts. Who is this man? Why is he using my identity? I decided to stop at a local bar to distract myself. As I ordered a drink, I noticed the guy at the counter looking at me. When our gazes crossed, he smiled and walked over. "Hey, Carter. Long time no see." Do I know you?" "Are you kidding me? We used to work at the body shop together." I felt a chill run down my spine. "I'm sorry, but I don't know you." The guy grinned in surprise. "Come on, don't kid yourself. You left a couple weeks ago and said you'd be back in a month. How are you?" I didn't know what to say. "Can you show me a picture?" I asked, trying to stay calm. "Sure." The guy pulled out his phone and showed me a picture of me standing next to an old pickup truck with a smile on my face. "The doppelganger. That's him." "Yeah. That's you." Or did you really hit your head? I stood up and walked toward the exit without turning around. The street seemed hostile, like the whole town was trying to play a trick on me. When I reached the motel, I found the door ajar. I cautiously entered and looked around the room. Nothing was missing. There was a note on the bed. Leave before it's too late. Your place is already taken. I dropped the phone from my hands. The whole thing seemed like a bad dream from which it was impossible to wake up. I stood in the middle of the motel room, feeling my heart racing. A note lay on the bed. Leave before it's too late. Your place is already taken. I turned to the door and saw that the lock was broken. Someone had been here while I left for the bar. But how did they know where I was staying? Or had they been following me from the beginning? I grabbed my phone and called Mike. Dude, there's something wrong. Someone left me a note and broke the lock. Are you sure it wasn't motel employees? No. The note is clearly threatening. Someone's following me. Maybe we should contact the police. They won't take it seriously. I already tried that. Mike's been thinking. Look, I checked some databases. Found a guy with the same name and similar info, but he's been missing for a while. He was seen in Texas about a year ago. You think it's him? I don't know. But I think this doppelganger showed up for a reason. I decided not to spend the night at the motel, so I moved to another motel, away from the center. On the way, I got another call from Mike. Hey, one more thing. I found a weird forum where they discuss fake identities. Some people post that their IDs are being used by someone else and they're still living under a different name. Is this some kind of witness protection program? More like a fake ID scheme. People disappear and others take their place. I stopped at an empty park and sat down on a bench, thinking about what I'd heard. If someone has taken my place, it's not just a coincidence. That person knows what they're doing. The next morning I decided to go back to the bar to find the guy who claimed we worked together. The bartender recognized me right away. Hey, Carter. What are you doing here so early? No reason. I just wanted to talk to a guy I ran into yesterday. You mean Tom? He left a minute after you did. You know where I can find him? Usually hangs out at a body shop on Baker Street. I headed over there, feeling the anxiety building inside me. If Tom knows my double, he might know the truth. As I approached the machine shop, I saw Tom by the pickup truck. He noticed me and raised an eyebrow in surprise. What are you, back here again? He grinned. We need to talk. About what? About your buddy who looks like me. Tom got serious all of a sudden. You are Carter. Or am I missing something? No. I'm the other Carter. Someone who lives in another state and has never been here. Are you kidding me? Tom's obviously tense. You left a couple weeks ago, and now you're pretending you don't remember. I came closer. Look, I don't know who this man is, but he's obviously not me. Can you tell me what he was doing? Tom looked at me suspiciously. Are you okay? You really don't remember? You worked for Charlie. He always said you had the memory of a goldfish. Charlie's name didn't mean anything to me. I thanked Tom and headed out. Around the corner, I dialed Mike. Dude, I found a guy who knows my doppelganger. He said he worked for a guy named Charlie. Wait a minute. Charlie Logan? The local boss who tried to go to jail for dealing documents? Looks like it. You might want to be careful. If this doppelganger's involved in dirty deeds, you might just be taken out to avoid confusion. I decided to look for Charlie on my own. According to Tom, he used to hang out at a bar on the outskirts of town. When I got there, the place looked empty. I sat down at the counter and ordered a beer. The bartender gave me a brief glance and nodded. Half an hour later, 3 men entered the bar. One of them headed straight for me. Are you Carter? He asked threateningly. Yes, I answered, trying not to show my fear. Charlie wants to see you. I was taken to a back room. A stout man in a leather jacket was sitting at a desk. He looked up and gestured for me to sit down. You've done well for yourself, Carter. First you bail, and now you're back. I'm sorry, but I'm not the man you think I am. Charlie grinned. Are you kidding? I gave you the job myself. I realized that explanations wouldn't help. Look, someone has stolen my identity. This person looks like me, but they're not me. Are you kidding me? Charlie suddenly got serious. You really don't remember how you pulled off the deal? I stared at him silently, not knowing what to say. Charlie suddenly nodded to one of his men. Check him out. If he's delirious, get him out of sight. I was taken out to the backyard and put against the wall. One of the guys drew a knife and slowly approached. Wait, I shouted. I can prove it. I have documents from another address, I can show you. The guy stopped. Show me. I opened my phone and showed a photo of my real license. The man frowned. So you're not him. Then who is? I tried to explain the situation, but the guys clearly weren't going to listen. Suddenly a man, who looked to be in his 40s, walked through the door and ordered everyone out. What's going on? He asked in a stern voice. This guy says he's not Carter. Let him go. I'll take care of this myself. When we were alone, he sat down across from me. My name is Frank. I know about doppelgangers. You better disappear before it gets worse. What's going on? Why is someone living under my name? Frank sighed. It's a long story. You'd better get away. If Charlie finds out Carter is a fake, he'll just kill you. I realized there were more questions. But Frank looked like the only person who might know the truth. Who is this Carter guy? Someone Charlie saved years ago. He lost his memory after the accident, so we gave him a new identity. And then you came along, the original. I felt a noise in my head. So my doppelganger is the person with memory loss who was given my data. But why? Frank leaned toward me. Go away, kid. You don't realize what you've gotten yourself into. I sat in the cramped room with Frank, feeling reality crumbling before my eyes. This man claimed my doppelganger was just some random guy with amnesia who'd been given my data. But if he lost his memory, who made him a copy of me? Frank fell silent, as if weighing whether to tell me the truth. I realized I had only one chance to get to the bottom of this. Frank, I began, trying to keep my voice calm, I need to know who this Carter guy really is. He rubbed his forehead and sighed heavily. A couple years ago, Charlie decided to pull a dirty deal. This guy was in the wrong place at the wrong time. He got hit by a car, and oddly enough, Charlie didn't go after him. Instead, he took the guy back to his place and found out he didn't remember anything. I clenched my fists. And he just gave him my name. Yeah. Found an ID that matched his description. You weren't in the system yet. Charlie figured it'd be easier to make him Carter than look for new information. Why would he do that? Because he needed Carter to make a deal. A fake ID in your name was ready, and Charlie didn't want to lose his client. I could feel my insides boiling. My identity had become a front for some gangster. So this doppelganger is just a pawn. Exactly. He still thinks he's Carter and doesn't even realize his identity is a fake. Suddenly there was a rumble outside. Frank lifted his head and quickly looked out into the hallway. Charlie's coming. Hell, if he finds out you're the real Carter, we're both dead. Frank pulled a black raincoat out of the closet and put it on me. Sit tight and be quiet. I'll try to distract him. When the door swung open, Charlie and a couple of his men burst into the room. Where's the crazy guy? He growled. Gone, Frank answered calmly. I kicked him out like you asked. Charlie stepped closer and looked at me. Who's that? He's a worker from the shop. We're just loading some stuff in here. Charlie took a long look, but then nodded and walked away. Frank exhaled. You need to get out of town. If Charlie finds out the truth, he'll just kill you and that other Carter. I realized there was no choice. If I wanted to survive, I had to find my double and explain everything to him. But where would I find him? Frank handed me a note. It's the address where he lives. Try not to get into any trouble. And if you want some advice, don't tell him who you are right away. He might snap. I thanked him and went out the back door. My heart was pounding in my temples. I decided to go back to the motel first and get ready for the meeting. But when I got to the room, the door was ajar again. I stepped inside, holding my cell phone at the ready. The room looked empty, but there was another note lying on the bed. I know you're real. But why would you come back? You had a normal life. I sat on the bed, trying to figure out who had left the message. If my doppelganger knows about me, why isn't he trying to meet me? I dialed Mike and briefly explained the situation. Dude, this is really tough, he muttered. Are you sure this Carter guy isn't dangerous? I don't know yet. But if he's just in a jam, I don't want him to get killed. All right, keep me posted. I plucked up the courage to go to Frank's address. It was a small house on the outskirts of town. I knocked on the door and heard footsteps inside. The door was opened by a man with a short beard and a tired look. I knew right away it was him. He looked at me with surprise. Who are you? I'm Carter. The real Carter. He frowned. What the hell is this nonsense? I'm Carter. Your name isn't Carter. It's just a name they gave you after the accident. He rubbed his forehead in confusion. You're delusional. I've lived here for a couple years. Why are you lying? Look, I know it's hard for you to accept the truth, but you were never Carter. Your real name is different. You lost your memory after the accident. Charlie made you into me. He froze. Charlie. You know him? Yes. He used your condition to create a new identity. He needed you for the deal. The man sank to the threshold in silence. I knew something was wrong. Sometimes I felt like I wasn't living my life. But Charlie said I was just forgetting the past. Do you remember anything? Just the accident. The fog, the blood. And a voice that said, "You're Carter now." Suddenly there was a rumble nearby, and we both turned to the window. I saw Charlie and his men approaching the house. Shit. They found us, my double yelled. Go out the back door. I pushed him toward the exit. What about you? I'll hold them off. He hesitated, but disappeared behind the house. I was alone when Charlie burst inside. Well, hello, Carter, he grinned. Or should I call you something else? It's over, Charlie. I know the truth. The truth is that I have a plan, and you're just a liability. I knew Charlie wouldn't let me live, but I hoped my double would escape in time. Charlie stepped closer, raising his gun. You know what the best part is? Even if you disappear, no one will notice. I already have a Carter who doesn't ask questions. At that moment the door was kicked in, and Frank and two policemen burst into the room. Put the gun down, Charlie. He shouted. Charlie tried to resist, but he was twisted and handcuffed. I stood dumbfounded. Frank. How did you find us? I thought I'd be on the safe side. I'd been playing on two fronts for too long. It was time to end this adventure. The cops took Charlie away, and I could finally breathe. My doppelganger came back after he made sure the coast was clear. So I'm not Carter. He muttered. You could be anyone. You just need to remember who you really are. He nodded, clearly digesting what he'd heard. We both knew there were more questions ahead, but now that Charlie was caught, we had a chance to figure things out for ourselves. After Charlie's arrest, everything seemed to be falling into place, but I felt uneasy. My doppelganger, whom I decided to call Dave, sat across from me on his front porch, his head down. Are you okay? I asked, trying to break the silence. I don't know, he sighed. This whole thing, it feels like a delusion. Like I was living in someone else's reality. I understood him. If someone had told me that all my memories were lies, I wouldn't have believed it right away either. Look, I continued, at least now we have a chance to work things out. Charlie's no longer a threat. But who am I? Dave clenched his fists. If I'm not Carter, then who am I? I was trying to think of an answer when a car pulled up in front of the house. Frank got out. He looked tired, but happy. Well, boys, he grinned. It's all over. Charlie admitted his guilt and gave up everyone who was in cahoots with him. Did he say anything about Dave? I asked. Just that he found him after the accident and decided to use him. I guess he really didn't know who he really was. Dave lowered his head even lower. So what now? He muttered. You can start a new life, Frank suggested. We could help with the paperwork. Or try to find out your real name. I looked at Dave and suddenly realized that this was a chance for him to be himself, not what he'd been forced to be. Do you remember anything before the accident? I asked. Vague images. Looks like a farm. Somewhere in the country. And a green pickup truck. Nothing else. Frank's been thinking. I'll check missing persons databases. Maybe someone's been looking for you all this time. In the evening I suggested Dave go to a bar, just to get away and talk. We ordered a beer and sat in the corner so no one would ask questions. Did you ever think someone was living your life? He asked, twirling the glass in his hands. I didn't, I admitted. But you know. I think I lost myself at some point. While I was trying to figure out the truth, I forgot who I really was. Dave nodded, but his eyes remained blank. I knew he needed time to accept the truth. We were having another drink when the bartender approached us. Hey, Carter, you back? He asked, looking at Dave. Dave hesitated, but I intervened. This is his brother. He's here to help with the paperwork. The bartender shrugged and left. When we got back to the house, Frank was standing on the doorstep. There's news, he said. We've run all the missing persons with similar features. Looks like Dave might be David Miller from Oklahoma. The guy disappeared 5 years ago after a car accident. Are you sure? Dave asked, like he was afraid to hear the answer. The photos almost match. His mom's been looking for him all this time. She even came to Texas a couple years ago when she heard about a similar man, but Charlie scared her off. Dave turned away silently, trying to digest what he'd heard. She wants to meet with you, Frank continued. If you're ready, I'll arrange it. We both knew it was a chance to recover his past. But Dave didn't look convinced. I don't know if I can meet her, he whispered. What will I tell her? That I was a puppet for the gangsters. Frank patted him on the shoulder. You were a victim. It wasn't your fault. The next day we drove to the small cafe on the outskirts where the meeting was to take place. Dave was nervous and I tried to be supportive. As we approached the entrance, I saw an older woman with a worried look in her eyes. She turned and immediately froze. David? Her voice trembled. Dave stepped forward uncertainly. Mom. They stood in silence, as if afraid to shatter the illusion. Then the woman rushed to him and hugged him, as if she was afraid of losing him again. I thought you were gone, she sobbed. Didn't know who I was, Dave whispered. I stepped aside, giving them space. Frank walked over to me. You think he's gonna be okay? Yeah. He just needs to remember who he was. When we got back to the car, Dave looked confused but happy. She wants to take me home, he said. But I'm not ready yet. That's okay. There's no need to rush, I replied. Frank offered to take them both to a safe place for a few days. We exchanged phone numbers, and I promised to keep in touch. When I was alone, there was a strange desolation inside. My life seemed to be back to normal, but something was different. I realized that my identity wasn't just my name and ID, but everything I'd been through. A few months passed. I went on with my life, but I would occasionally get messages from Dave. He had found a job and was slowly regaining his memory. His mother called often and thanked me for my help. One day I received a short message. I have found myself again. Thanks for helping me not lose my last hope. Dave. I smiled. Knew he was on the right track now. The doppelganger story reminded me not to dwell on the past. It was important to look forward and not be afraid to start over. It had been a few months since Dave had finally found his family. I continued to live my life, trying to put it all behind me. Sometimes we corresponded, and he told me how he was slowly regaining his memory and learning to live in a new way. I was happy for him, because he deserved this chance. One night I got a call from Frank. I could hear the concern in his voice. Carter, we need to meet. What's wrong? It's important. I'll be there in an hour. We met at a small cafe on the outskirts of town. Frank looked tired and worried. He sat down across from me and looked at me with a serious look. We have a problem, he said, rubbing the bridge of his nose. Is it something with Dave? No, with Charlie. I was surprised. He'd been locked up. Yeah. But he's applied for a retrial. He says he was set up and he's got proof you're not the real Carter. I was stunned. What the hell is that? He claims you switched identities with the real Carter and used the situation with Dave to throw off suspicion. My insides are clenched. That's just bullshit. I know it is. But he's already got lawyers involved, and they're trying to get you in for questioning. I clenched my fists. But my paperwork's all real. I've always been Carter. The problem is, Charlie managed to recruit some corrupt cops to testify against you. I've been trying to make sense of this. So he's trying to get out of this by framing me? Exactly. And if he can prove you're a crook, he might get off. I knew I had to act. I called Mike and told him the situation. It's really crazy, he exhaled. But I'll see what I can dig up on those cops. Frank offered to set up a meeting with a lawyer to go over the evidence. I realized that if nothing was done, my life could be ruined. The next day, Mike and I started going through the documents and camera footage. I noticed one detail: in the video of the day Charlie was arrested, his words sounded strange. He mentioned several times that the real Carter had disappeared a long time ago, even though he had previously assured me that Dave was Carter. Mike had latched onto that clue. So he was confused about what he was saying. Yeah. He didn't know which one of us was which. So he was lying to get out of it. We decided to talk to Dave again. When I got to his house, he was waiting for me on the porch. I heard about what happened, he said quietly. I need your help. You know Charlie's been manipulating you. Yeah. But if he can make you look like an imposter, Dave hesitated. Are you ready to testify? To tell the truth, that he forced you to live my life? Of course I am. I don't want to be someone else's shadow anymore. We went to Frank's and videotaped Dave's testimony. He told how Charlie found him after the accident, gave him someone else's ID and made him work for him. I could see how hard it was for him to admit it. Frank called his contacts in the DA's office and turned over the video. A couple days later, we learned that Charlie's lawyers dropped their charges when it became clear they had no evidence. Charlie got even more jail time for attempted witness tampering. When things quieted down, I was relieved. But one thought lingered: if Dave hadn't decided to help, my life might have been ruined. I met with him one more time before he left. He was going to go back to Oklahoma with his mother and start over. Thank you for not leaving me then, he said. You decided to be yourself. I just helped a little. He smiled, and I knew everything was going to be okay. A year later, I got a letter from Dave. He was telling me how he had finally found a job as a mechanic and was able to settle into his personal life. He no longer felt like a stranger in his own body. I sat on the porch of my house and smiled as I reread his lines. Over the past few months, I've learned that sometimes finding yourself means accepting your mistakes and fighting for the truth. Now that it was behind me, I knew one thing: no matter who tries to steal your life, the truth will always find a way to manifest.